Hi, welcome to Door to Door with your host, me, Judy Stakee. Join me as I travel all over interviewing songwriters about their process. Hi, I'm Judy Stakee, and welcome to my next episode of Door to Door. I'm really excited to be sitting here today with Jordan Richman, a very multi-talented songwriter, producer, engineer, multi-instrumentalist, and artist. Jordan, at a very young age, has already had a lot of success. He co-wrote with Sabrina Carpenter and Lindsay Rush a song for Sabrina Carpenter's Hollywood debut album. He also produced it. It's called Right Now. And he wrote a song with JoJo Siwa and two other writers, Griffith Frank and Heather. And they wrote a song called Boomerang for JoJo, who was also one of the little stars of Dance Moms. And it is a huge YouTube hit already with over 500 million hits on YouTube. Can you believe that? And there's so many other artists that Jordan is in the process of developing and A&Ring their projects. I'm so excited to be sitting with him today, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the really nice introduction.
You're welcome. So you kind of know how this works. You've seen them before. So I'm gonna ask you about a dozen questions, and we'll go from there. Okay?
Alrighty, sounds great.
Cool. So how did we meet?
We met at a songwriting conference 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the West Coast Songwriters Songwriting Conference, and we had in San Jose, and we had a one-on-one meeting where you listened to my songs and thankfully liked one of them.
Yes.
And then I was moving down to Los Angeles in a few weeks, and I asked if I could be your intern. And then I moved down and we started working, and it's been some of the best development really the only development I've ever gotten as a songwriter.
We have been side by side for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
To continue that is that Jordan was my intern for about a year, and then after he graduated from school, I hired him as my assistant for another year, and then through being involved in the workshops and in my community, he started really producing and getting a lot of clients, and so he quit being my assistant, and I started managing him, and he's an amazing client.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about what kind of work you had to put in growing up to get so that you could have this career.
Well, surprisingly, what I do now is very, very similar to what I was doing at 13 when I bought my first microphone and was writing my first song and was trying to figure out how do I make an MP3 like I hear from all of the other artists that come out. And that was recording all the instruments, recording my voice, and making the product. And 10 years later, now I'm doing that on a much bigger level.
Did you always, like from the age of 13, did you figure things out yourself, or did you have people in your life who were showing you? Both.
I grew up with two parents that were classical musicians. So from the music side, my mom was a professional flute player, my dad was a professional trumpet player. So they taught me the musicality, but technology is very new, and so we had a computer, and it was kind of, my mother took me out to buy a recording program, and then I was on my own. Let's figure this out, let's try every possibility until it works. We didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Google at the time.
Right.
So it was a lot of trial and error.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you took to it very well, I have to say, because you understand the technology of it.
Now I do.
Now you do, yes. You put a few years in there trying educating yourself. What is your creative process?
My creative process is really collaborative in that, so as a producer, I'm always working with an artist or working with songwriters in the room, and I feel like my biggest strength there is reading everybody and figuring out what does that sound like. What does it sound like with this combination of people? What do we need it to sound like? And I kind of get, most of the time I'll get a mental image of the sound or a riff or some musical motif, and then that'll be the inception of the idea.
Great. That's wonderful. How do you stay currently musical? How do you musically stay current?
I musically stay current by really creating music every day and only going with ideas that feel new and original to me.
Do you listen to a lot of new music, though? Are you?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. I'm listening to all the new music that comes out as much as I can, but really at the end of the day, it's my filter of, does this still feel fresh to me?
Okay.
Is this still something I want to do? And that could be what I made 3 months ago could not feel fresh to me anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll have all these ideas of how I want to change it, and then I have to decide if I'm actually going to do that. Or if I'm going to write something else that's new and fresh and current.
Right, look at the old demos and say, do I need to musically get them current? Yeah.
You know, there's a part of me that wants to make every single demo I do, like, exactly as current as I am today.
What's really been amazing about your career is that you have really followed the path of developing artists. You know, instead of, yes, you know, we want to get cuts as much as possible with songs in your catalog, but you have been writing with artists. Mm-hmm. So when you meet with these artists, okay, what is that it factor, the X factor that you are looking for to work with them?
I've met a lot of artists and worked with a lot of artists, and the ones that have had the success really want to be there. Mm-hmm. They really, really care about the music and getting it out there. Mm-hmm. And those are the projects that are successful. Rather than the ones where they're going because somebody told them to go or they think it's what they should be doing. But when they have that motivation and they want to make it the best they can, that's when I can push them to become their best, and I can really go as far as they're willing to go.
Right. It's always nice when they want it more than you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have to. Yeah. They have to.
How do you prepare for a session?
Ooh. I prepare for a session by knowing that no matter what, I'm probably going to be unprepared. You know, I could come up with a ton of musical ideas, and then we get in the room and the artist isn't feeling any of them, and then we have to start from scratch anyways. Right. And that's not really wasted time, because then I figured out a lot of ideas that aren't it, and maybe I figured out a few sounds that are going to work and a few starting points. Mm-hmm. But really I'm going to go into the room and I'm going to be ready for anything. And I try to stay as present as possible.
That's a great answer. Yeah, absolutely. Great. So let's talk about maybe one of the biggest highlights of your career so far.
Okay.
Boomerang. Can you talk about how that came about?
Boomerang was a really interesting record in that we were working with JoJo Siwa, and she was a reality star on Dance Moms at the time, and she's dabbled in music but never really put her foot forward, and then all of a sudden wants to put out a single.
And she's what, 12 years old?
And she's 12.
Yeah.
And she's 12, and her professional training is as a dancer.
Right. So
it was a lot of fun getting in there and having such a blank template to work with. As far as I can go in there and really create the sound that I feel matches her. So all I knew going in was, let's make it a lot of drums and let's make it upbeat, and then whatever else happens, happens. But that song, we made it. She came in with a message of she wanted to talk about anti-bullying, especially cyberbullying. And then we refined the song and we put it out there without a label, and it blew up beyond imagination.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
I mean, overnight, the song went from 200 to 300,000 streams, which is a lot, to getting 1 million streams a day.
Yeah.
And then it just kept there, to the point that at this point, it's been on the YouTube Hot 100 charts for top music videos for 58 weeks.
58 weeks. That's amazing. It really, really is. Mm-hmm. Well, and the way it grew, because it was like you said, like it came out in May or June of 2016, right?
May 2016.
May 16. And like 3 months later, it was at 250 million. You know, it was like that fast, you know,
right.
Just like it got them, yeah.
Well, it was overnight part of it, but the weirdest part of that record is a year later, it was more popular than it was when it came out. So it's just been this record that has had incredible legs.
You know, when you write something for that age group that is so empowering, all those kids that are 13 now that have the 8, 9-year-old brothers, just they're turning them on to it. You know, you can see the legacy that they're passing down. You know, let me show you an empowerment song that you can sing to everybody. You know,
Right.
Nah.
And the nice part is most of my records that have come out are spreading positive messages
Yes.
out there.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
definitely I'm glad they're being passed on and shared, and keep sharing them,
Yeah,
please.
exactly,
Thank you.
Exactly. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice really has come from you at one point, where it's that I'm a good producer and I don't need to prove it to anybody. which has really helped me a lot in songwriting sessions, going in there knowing that I don't need to have all of these tracks or come out blazing trying to create the craziest sounds, and we can really get in there and focus on the important things of finding out the song and creating the best song we can, and leaving all of the other parts till later.
Yeah. Well, you proved that also in your co-write with Sabrina Carpenter, because you only had a limited amount of time.
Right.
know?
You know, we had 3 or 4 hours to get in the room and meet and write a song and record the song and then get her entire lead vocal.
Right.
And we were able to get it all done.
And get it done to the fact where, again, this is where you produced it so beautifully, because you got that vocal, you got the song. And so what was wonderful is that Disney called me and said, can Jordan produce it? Because they loved what you got in the room. And that's good producing.
Yes.
That's good producing, so good. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
If I could have one superpower, I would say that it would be to freeze time, or maybe it's to not sleep, because I think that's the closest I can actually get to having more time.
You're gonna figure that out if it kills you.
Yeah.
Do you have a least favorite word to use in a song?
I don't have a least favorite word, but I do have a least favorite phrase.
Okay, I'll accept that.
And that's, I won't be the same.
I won't be the same.
Yeah, which is
Without
like
you.
such a negative statement and so uninteresting, because I'd much rather hear how you're going to be different than how you're not going to be.
Right, that kind of keeps you stuck.
Yeah, it's just boring. Like, tell me something new.
So if you could write with or for any artist, who would it be?
There's so
Who'd be
many.
on your list?
There's so many artists on my list, and and it's going to be changing. The really nice part is who I think I want to write with 2 years ago is not who I want to write with today. And really it's just, always the next artist that's coming in the room. That's always the one that I'm most excited for.
All right. Nobody on the wish list that you would like?
We're going to check that one off. We'll check it off, but I don't want to stick to just one.
Okay, all right. So before we end, a piece of advice for writers, producers out there who want to follow in your footsteps.
Okay, well, I would say if you want to follow in my footsteps, just spend the time. Spend the time working on your craft. Like, I feel like what we are, like magnifying glasses, focusing our energy, and just really focus it on one thing and keep chiseling away at it, and eventually you're going to break through.
Yeah, grit.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. That's what you have.
Thank you.
A lot of grit, Jordan. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for this. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay.